The House will come to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Gregorio, please call the roll.
Representatives Amabile, Arndt, Bacon, Baisley, Benavidez, Burnett, Byrd, Bockenfeld, Bradfield, Caraveo, Carver, Catlin, Cutter, Doherty, Duran, Escar, Exum, Froelich, Geithner, Gonzalez Gutierrez, Representative Gonzalez Gutierrez, Gray, Hanks, Herod, Representative Herod, Representative Herod is excused. Holtorf, Hooten, Jackson,
Here.
Judah, Kennedy, Kip, Larson, Montine, Luck, Lynch, McCluskey, McCormick, McKean, McLaughlin,
Here.
Michelson Janae. Representative Michelson Janae is excused. Mullica, Neville. Here. Ortiz. Representative Ortiz. Representative Ortiz is excused. Pelton. Pico. Ransom. Rich. Ricks. Representative Ricks is excused. Roberts. Sandridge. Here. Sirota. Snyder. Soper. Representative Soper. Sullivan. Tipper. Titone. Valdez A. Valdez D. Van Beber. Van Winkle. Weissman. Will. Williams.
Here.
Woodrow. Woog. Young. And Mr. Speaker.
With 63 present, 2 excused, we have a quorum. Representative Bradfield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For those of you who your alarm clock went off way too early this morning, I just want to recap on Bill 1106. 23 amendments were offered. And after that, then 18 cow amendments were offered. And that is why everything ended so late last night. So that brings me to, Mr. Speaker, I move that the Journal of Monday, March 8, 2021 be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Representative Bradfield. You have heard the motion that the journal be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye. Aye. That's pretty good. All those opposed, no. No. It's pretty lively. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Announcements and introductions. Representative Exum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House Transportation and Local Government, we will be hearing two bills today, House Bill 1076 and House Bill 1114, over in LSBA, 130. See you there.
Is this all for, should I just do them all now? Thank you, Representative Exum. I have a few announcements. Representative Cutter will replace Representative Jackson on the Energy and Environment Committee on Wednesday, March 10th only. Representative Woodrow will replace Representative Michelson Janae on the Education Committee on Wednesday, March 10th only. Representative McCormick will replace Representative Jackson on the Energy and Environment Committee on Thursday, March 11th only. And Representative Judah will replace Representative Michelson Janae on the Education Committee on Thursday, March 11th only. Any further announcements or introductions? Representative Weissman.
Thank you and good morning, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Judiciary Committee, we are meeting in both of our time blocks today, as you can see on the calendar here. We have two bills on adjournment, Senate Bill 68, which is the annual CRS bill. That should be easy, at 1060. Then in the afternoon at 1:30, again, you can see we have two bills, 1090 and 1179. We'll start 1:30. At 1:30, we will start the on adjournment time block 10 minutes after we recess here, and that will be whenever it is. See you down there. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Weissman. Seeing no further announcements or introductions, the next order of business is third reading of bills. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1161.
House Bill 1161 by Representatives Sirota and McLaughlin, also Senators Zenzinger and Quorum, concerning suspending required statewide assessments for selected grade levels for the 2020-21 school year and in connection therewith reducing an appropriation.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1161 on third reading, final passage.
Seeing no further discussion on House Bill 1161, the motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1161 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Those participating remotely, Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes, but we cannot see the board today. But yes for me, please.
Great. Can we make sure that the people remotely can see the board? Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Williams, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Williams votes no. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Sandridge, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Sandridge votes no. Representative Neville, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Neville votes no.
Ortiz is here. Thank you.
And Representative Ortiz, please close the machine. With 52 aye votes and 12 no votes and one excused, House Bill 1161 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative Jackson, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title to House Bill 1015.
House Bill 1015 by Representatives Carver and Tipper, also Senators Lundin and Janal, concerning security protections for certain criminal justice system personnel.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1015 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, before we open up the machine though, people remotely, can you see the board? We cannot see the board. Can we? We'll keep working on that. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Williams, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Williams votes no. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Sandridge, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Sandridge votes yes. Representative Neville, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Neville votes no. Please close the machine. With 63 aye votes, 2 no votes, and 0 excused, House Bill 1015 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative Jackson, co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1107.
House Bill 1107 by Representatives Caraveo and Carver, also Senators Bridges and Lundin, concerning protections for certain public health workers.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1107 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1107 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Williams, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Williams votes no. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Sandridge, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Sandridge votes no. Representative Neville, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Neville votes no. Please close the machine. With 61 aye votes, 4 no votes, and 0 excused, House Bill 1107 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Representative McLaughlin and Representative Jackson, co-sponsor. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of the House Bill 1106.
House Bill 1106 by Representatives Duran and Mullica, also Senators Bridges and Hansen, concerning measures to secure firearms to prevent use by persons not lawfully permitted to possess firearms.
Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move House Bill 1106 on third reading, final passage.
Seeing no, just joking. Representative Beasley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, January 13, we all stood here together. We put our hands on our sacred book and raised our right hand, and we swore oath to uphold the constitutions of the United States of America and of the state of Colorado. Now, what might tempt us to ever violate that oath of office? Maybe if one party controls both the House and the Senate and the governor's office. But let me tell you what the challenge is, what the domino effect is. Not only does it challenge our own personal and professional integrity to vote against our oath, but it puts the other chamber in the same position of them having to decide, do I vote my party or do I vote my oath of office? What happens then after it makes it all the way through to Governor Polis's office? Puts him in that position. Do I vote my party or do I uphold my oath of office? And once that law is distributed across the state of Colorado, then all law enforcement officers who swear an oath to uphold the constitutions of the state of Colorado and of the United States of America are also faced with, how do I justify and reconcile my oath of office and enforcing this law that I know to be unconstitutional? This law, this bill, flies in the face of the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, the Fourth Amendment, and the Bill of Rights within the state of Colorado Constitution. For the sake of integrity, personal, professional integrity, I challenge anyone who's intending to vote for this unconstitutional bill to first come right here and renounce your oath of office. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And Representative Beasley, we don't want to impugn anyone's motives for how they're going to vote one way or the other. And your opinion of whether or not the bill is constitutional is your opinion. But impugning anyone else's motives, we want to refrain from that. We have had a fair and reasonable debate on this bill. Let's continue that on third reading and final passage. Is there further discussion? Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I won't repeat many of the points that were discussed yesterday, but there were many arguments that didn't receive due time. First, this body really should be working together for mental health, the mental health of Colorado citizens, for our kids, adults, all Coloradans, especially during these trying times. This bill is not about mental health. I wish it was, but unfortunately it is not. Second, the bill was not given a proper hearing before our Judiciary Committee. The House Judiciary Committee is home to thoughtful, reasonable discussion and has been the birthplace of every criminal law matter before this body for decades. In fact, it's the first time I've seen sweeping new criminal law created through, frankly, the most partisan political committee perhaps in our state's history. No offense to the State Affairs Committee, but members, we all know what the State Affairs Committee is about. I love you on the State Affairs Committee. You're very good people and good representatives, but oftentimes that committee is not about judiciary matters or criminal law, but more partisan issues before us. This bill overnight has the ability to criminalize hundreds of thousands of upstanding, reasonable citizens, and it's coming with the goal, it seems, of scoring political points over things like mental health. Most troublesome of all, next to the clear infringement of the Second Amendment rights, as well as well-established court precedents that were discussed yesterday, is that the force of government through this bill will pass beyond the sacred threshold that we all, both parties, House and Senate Governor's Office, have held sacred for years, which is government doesn't pass beyond the street into the front yard, backyard, but definitely not inside the home. And certainly with this bill, it doesn't just simply go inside the home, it goes inside people's nightstands, inside people's closets, deep inside their bedrooms, which I don't want the government in my nightstand. In closing, law-abiding homeowners have the God-given right to protect themselves, their property, their loved ones. This bill infringes upon that. It endangers lives, is unconstitutional, ill-conceived, and poorly written. For those reasons, I ask for a no vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Van Winkle. One more time. I know this is an issue that people see differently. Let's keep the debate respectful, and let's keep this going in the right direction. Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for your leadership and your counsel and your direction and words. I think my colleague goes too far. And that's why I came forward. Now, I understand this is a constitutional question. And there are a few people in this chamber, I would suspect, that embrace the Second Amendment as much as I do. They're probably more than I realize. But I will tell you that there was very impactful comments made by legal scholars and my colleagues about the infringement and the encroachment on our Second Amendment rights. Now, one of my colleagues, who I'm looking at right now with a smile, introduced me to an idea. And I want to bring that up because it is, see, you're smiling too, because we are colleagues, and I appreciate you. I do. Not your camera, but I appreciate you. Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I take that back. I apologize. Because that's not what I'm trying to do. We have a fundamental struggle within our nation, and it is playing out right here in this chamber. And it truly speaks to what is the Constitution, what embodies the Constitution, and what of the Constitution do we preserve and protect on one side, and the other side, what about the Constitution do we want to modify and or adjust or change on the other side? This is not new to the history of our nation. As my colleague mentioned, and there are things that have been changed historically surrounding the Constitution. And don't think those comments were not received and understood. But I will tell you, and I'm going to pivot back to something that I want everybody in Colorado to understand. And I'm very passionate about understanding each other and understanding our differences as the rural and urban divide grows wider. And nothing in my heart wants this to come together more. And this particular theme and this particular bill, unfortunately, is going to push that divide farther. Now, I'm not going to attack the merits of the bill, and I understand because the bill sponsor and I had a very good discussion after everybody left last night. We were maybe the only two in here. I understand where he's coming from. I get it. And I understand we debated vigorously the differences. I think we covered most of the bases, as they say in baseball, more than once. But as we move forward, please help me. Because as we draw our lines, we are so far apart. We are so far apart in this nation right now, and we are very far apart in this state. We have to start coming together. Now, you ask, well, where are you coming from there, cowboy? Because I think you've lost your ever-loving mind when you talk. Well, I'm going to tell you something. There was a rally here in January. I was one of the only legislators there. There were a lot of people from the country. There are a lot of people from the country that are very upset. There are a lot of people from the country that have had enough. Now, what do you mean by have enough? Well, I will tell you, I was having maybe some of the most difficult discussions I've had with my people about where are we going from here. And I urged them to not talk and think what they were talking and thinking. Now, I'm going to give you a little insight on that. Our country was founded on rebellion. And there are political winds where I come from. And I'm not making this up, ladies and gentlemen, so let's understand where we're going.
Representative Holtorf, let's
Yes,
make
sir.
sure we're not talking about the next step being rebellion or anything like that. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate your leadership. I just want us to understand how impactful and how important these decisions we make. As we chisel away and we drive wedges between us, even with the best of intentions, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, if this continues to go like this, there may be a breaking point. And I never want to see that in my life, or my children's lives, or our grandchildren's lives. So I'm concerned, and I'm not up here on a bully pulpit. I'm not up here trying to do anything. In fact, I'm trying to do the opposite. And I will share that message anywhere and everywhere I go. But we have to try to bring this nation together. We have to, instead of further dividing, we have to find a way to bring us together under one tent as Americans. And that is my plea. That is my consideration as we draw political lines and as we champion the things we want to champion, and as we move forward as a nation, as we move forward as a state. So please just understand that the message I bring is not mine. And it is something that I am having to struggle with in my district and in my communities. In the farthest ends of this state, there's guns a go-go. And nobody's afraid of them, and nobody's afraid to use them. And they know how. Now, I'm going to stop talking right here.
Representative
And I'm
Holtorf.
going to turn the mic over to you.
We can't, listen, tensions seem real high this morning. Everything went late last night. We can't be inciting violence. We can't be talking about using firearms. Let's keep it to the bill. We're on third reading. Let's keep it to the bill. Representative Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
Honor to serve with you too, Representative Ortiz.
Esteemed colleagues, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. How dare any of us act like any one side has a monopoly on this sacred document? What I just read right there is the mission statement by which we are supposed to view this document. It is a living, breathing, growing document set up for us so that as we grow as a nation, we can secure these things. The merits of this bill have been discussed in the courts. So these claims that it's unconstitutional, how dare you? These claims, when you come up here and talk about violence and rebellion, you are supposed to be the best in your community. We. That way, let me talk about we, because it's all of us. We are supposed to inspire the better angels of our nature. You want to know why we're divided? It's because we do not. It is okay to have heated debate and to disagree. That's what we're here for. That's what families do. We are all a part of a family, whether we like it or not. But to come up here and to impugn each other's intentions, to come up here and to continue spreading falsehoods that the merits of this bill are unconstitutional when it's been decided in courts and discussed in courts, should have no place here. We should do and be better. Be the example. That's what leadership is, especially if you served in the military.
Okay. Thank you, Representative Ortiz. Hold on, Representative Wu. Again, we're not going to impugn anyone's motives on either side of the aisle. All right? So let's all take a deep breath. If you want to talk on third reading, we're going to talk about the merits of the bill. If you want to disagree on what's inside House Bill 1106, that's totally fine. There's 10 minutes reserved for you to do that. Let's all take a deep breath, take a drink of water. No more impugning anyone's motives on either side of the aisle. Representative Wu, do you want to talk on third reading? All right, help us reset the debate. Representative Wu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's up to me. Yeah, I think it's just important that we understand that some of my colleagues, we don't believe the Constitution is a growing document, and this does relate to 1106. We believe the Second Amendment is concise and clear, and it's going to be extremely difficult to work on this together with those disagreements. I think we can all see that. But that's a major disagreement, and we certainly have the right to come up here and speak to that. So I hope we can move forward with that understanding and not go after each other, but like I said, I certainly believe that my colleagues and I believe the Constitution has been set. We swore an oath to it. So please understand that that's where many of us are coming from. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Wu. Further discussion. Representative Geithner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So members, I come up today, I appreciate the words from my colleague, Representative Rugg, and I think that's a great point. The Second Amendment clearly does say that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And so when I look at 1106, I tend to look at it in the aspect of just what the Second Amendment says, and that is the right to keep and bear. I believe that it is a bridge too far for this body to sit back and to tell the people of Colorado how they must secure their weapons within their homes, which is a constitutionally protected right. And while I think Representative Rugg was correct, and there may be some disagreement in his statements from one side of the aisle, that's fine, but that's the level of perspective that I think many on the right and those that I represent in my district share, is that the wording is very, very clear of the Second Amendment. I think that there is also consideration that we must give when it comes to the ability for one to defend themselves. And that is that when we have impediments, obstacles that would delay and could delay, I don't want to put delays in the place of someone when those crucial seconds matter. I can't do that. I think safety is one of the things that all of us look to the most. It's one of the things that I've certainly, as a father, as a husband, always tried to provide for my family. And I cannot stand here in good conscience and tell another family that they have to have an obstacle they need to overcome. And so that's why I'm a no on 1106. I think that 1106 goes too far. It goes into the homes of people that live in Colorado, of families, and it says you must comply with this section of statute, this bill, or you are threatened with a misdemeanor. So now they have a balancing act where they have to pick. Do I want to be subject to a possible misdemeanor, be labeled a criminal? Or do I want to secure the members of my family, my possessions, my property? That's a tough place to put people. I can't do that. I won't do that. I believe that we need to stand by our Second Amendment. It was the oath that I took, and so I will be a no on 1106. I appreciated the robust debate that we had yesterday. I do believe that the bill probably should have started in judiciary. There's a lot of thoughts I have on this, but I think that's the conciseness and the ability for me to kind of bring it down to the lowest common denominator, is that we have our Second Amendment, and families and individuals have the right to protect themselves without impediment offered by this body, in my opinion. So members, I do encourage a no on 1106.
Representative Carver.
Members, I wasn't planning to speak on thirds, but, you know, I think when we evaluate bills, and, you know, I respect the perspective, and there are certainly lowercase rulings of similar safe storage in San Francisco, the Massachusetts case, others, Connecticut, where these have been upheld. Now, they're not identical to 1106, but I would also say, in an interesting fashion, that, you know, the San Francisco ordinance that was challenged and cert was denied in 2015, would that be the case today? I don't know if the Supreme Court would take that case now, when they wouldn't in 2015. But that is the nature of case law in both constitutional and other areas, is in almost every constitutional provision, you can find differing court cases. From my view, at least the way I approach constitutional law, I tend to give more weight to the latest Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court cases. In both due process, that is, when does a law clearly tell you clearly enough what is illegal and what is legal? I think there are serious constitutional concerns with 1106 from the due process standard. I think there are serious concerns with the bill under the two latest Supreme Court cases on the Second Amendment. Heller in 2008 and McDonald in 2010. And so, should this bill pass and be signed into law, it will then become subject to the process that we have had in this country for over 200 years, that we have a third branch of government with an independent judiciary who will look at the merits and the case law and make a decision. And so I do regret that we missed some opportunities, I thought, with the Neville amendments particularly, to ease the concern of our citizens, the lawful gun owners. I think that was a missed opportunity. I do also believe that because of the concerns with the bill, this bill does have the significant potential of criminalizing many lawful gun owners in the state. Now, that's a concern to me. It may not be a concern to you, but it's a concern for me. And I think their frustration will be increased by the fact that it is difficult to determine a method of compliance that also provides them their Second Amendment rights to defend themselves and their families in a way that is real when you're talking about a home invasion or other matters. The Second Amendment is not abstract. It is, do you have an ability to defend yourself in the real world, the way things happen in the real world? And I believe this amendment, this bill, creates impediments to that. So, respectfully, members, I would ask for a no vote.
Representative Luck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Loss is hard. Tragic loss is grievous. I have been on the other side of a phone call, being informed of a family member who shot himself in the head. I've also been on the other side of a phone call informing me of a family member who doused himself in gasoline and set himself on fire. I know that when we get those phone calls, or we sit across the table in our law offices, or our prosecutor offices, or our doctor's offices, we feel helpless, we feel confused, we feel broken. My heart's cry is similar to, I believe, everyone else's in this room. I don't want any more of those phone calls. I don't want to take them, and I don't want anyone else to receive them. I don't like that feeling in the pit of your stomach when certain numbers come across the screen and thinking, I don't want to take this call. I don't know what is going to be said. At the same time, when we look at solutions, when we look at ways in which, please feel free to sit down, thank you though. When we look at how do we respond and where do we go from here, it's important to remember that every action has both benefits and costs. So when I look at this particular bill, I wonder what benefits there are. Why do I say that? I mean, it seems reasonable enough, right? We're going to store safely these weapons so that our kids are protected. Well, yesterday at my desk, I took the gun lock that came with my pistol, and I have it here in the chamber if anyone wants to see this demonstrated at a later time, but I took that lock along with a pair of basic wire snippers, you know, the kinds that you would use if you do flower arrangements with plastic flowers to cut the stems off. And we cut it. We cut the lock without applying much pressure, without applying much pressure at all. This was in response to some videos that I received showing kids just dropping gun safes and the doors opening, showing them using straws and safety pins, paper clips, screwdrivers, in order to break basically every type of safe storage element on the market. And so when I think of this balancing test, when I think of, is there really an opportunity to truly provide safety? Is that even an option for us, genuinely? Or, as we all know, will our children, when determined, be able to be ingenuitive and get access to whatever? When I look at this bill and I look at the penalties associated with it for gun owners and for licensed gun dealers, and I look at the opportunities for harm for those who would, with good faith, seek to follow this and put themselves in harm's way, I simply, for these reasons and those stated by my colleagues in my caucus, I cannot support this bill. And so I strongly urge all of you to consider. There are many areas of our life where we have no control. There are many areas in our life where we have to live in the mess of the world and the brokenness of humanity. Let's be sure that the actions we take don't add to that brokenness and don't add to that mess. Thank you.
Mr. Minority Leader McKeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a big deal. It's a big deal to consider laws that do not involve the naming of a road or do not involve whether or not we're going to regulate pet stores. I don't mean to minimize other legislation, but what I'm saying is that when we come to this issue, we come to the core of how we've been established. We come to the core of how we treat the Constitution, as you heard from Representative Woog. So I think there are a few issues here that deserve illumination. I think the first is exactly that. It's a question of how do we interpret the Constitution? Is it a list of things like a menu in a restaurant where we say, well, we like a lot of this, and we think the First Amendment's really important because that's our freedom of speech, and so that's inviolate. That is absolutely never, ever going to be anything that we do about that. Second Amendment, I don't like as much maybe because, you know, it doesn't seem to be clear about modern day applications. The Fifth Amendment, why do we really need the Fifth Amendment? If you don't have anything to hide, why should you worry about it? How do we look through that list? How do we look through the very document that tells us the relationship between the people and their government? Because we are the government in this instance. I think that's a big question, and I think that many of us share what you heard from Representative Woog, that this document applies today as it applied then. It is one of the absolute miracles of the American experiment, is that the thoughtful consideration of what went into that document and how the Constitution marked out the relationship between the people and its government is entirely too important to mess with, and certainly too important to mess with when there are other questions that revolve around a bill such as this. We had a conversation, and Representative Neville is to be congratulated on really thinking about what is the need for the practical application of a law like this. And that means when confronted with a situation where law enforcement sees a weapon that is not stored properly, now what? Do we give them the latitude in law to make sure that they correct the action if what we heard yesterday is true, that what is desired is a change in behavior? Or do we really want to simply criminalize an action? Because those are two very different things. I mentioned that it was highly unlikely if we'd just changed the speed limit on a road that the very next day an officer would write you a ticket. Because the practicality of what the driver is expected to know and the situation that they have lived under for their entire lifetimes changes overnight, we know that the likelihood is that we need to have that elasticity in what that law looks like. But there's some other questions that I think as a body we need to struggle with. Because we consistently have conversations in this room, in these committees, in our stakeholder meetings about what it is that we are about and what can we do in this 73rd legislative session that affects other legislatures. And this bill actually has a piece of it that is of terrible concern. What it says is we want to pass this law, and we really want this education component. Well, I don't want to pass this law. I think the education components we have today are just fine. But what this bill says is, but we're not going to pay for it. We're just going to pass this law, and then we're going to foist that responsibility out into the future somewhere. I don't find that acceptable. But when we really get down to what we've heard in this well and what we heard yesterday, I come back to exactly where we come back so often, and why I think it's important to remember the diversity of experience and the diversity of thought that exists on both sides of this aisle. Because when we consider a bill like this, and we hear stories about, well, what if you need that firearm to defend yourself or to defend your livestock? We look at this as if there was only one lens. But there are a number of lenses, and one of the biggest is exactly what we heard about earlier, which is a divide, a growing divide, between how things apply in urban Colorado and how things apply in rural and frontier Colorado. If what we meant when we took this oath is that we are here to do our job for the state as a whole, then that's where we need to step 2 steps back and say, how does this bill apply? How does this bill apply in Haxton? How does this bill apply in Kim, Colorado? In Montrose? How does this bill apply in Aurora? Or in Boulder? Or in Colorado Springs? I think the highest calling we have is to make sure that when we pass laws, we ask those questions. And that we not only consider the answers, but that we consider them in the middle of debate. When we don't feel like we have come to a conclusion and everything else is just a cacophony of noise. Because when we come to this well and we have a debate on second reading, if all we're doing is getting up to preach to the camera or somewhere else, then we're not doing our jobs. If we've already settled on the solution and therefore this is just mechanism, I'm worth more than that. My ideas are worth more than that. Your ideas are worth more than that. Because what was presented yesterday, what has been talked about today, is quite literally a different perspective. And if what we're going to talk about is inclusion and diversity, then this is that painful moment where we really all do need to say, there might be another way of looking at this. And maybe that amendment is a good amendment. Because we get to make those decisions. We get to make those decisions in this room. So we're going to take a third reading vote today. We are going to likely have people with very different opinions about this bill. Cast your minds back in the weeks to come about the different opinions you heard here. And so not in the moment of debate and not in the moment of taking this final recorded vote, but as we go forward, cast your minds back to this debate and think back to some of the ideas that were offered. And come and talk about the value of those ideas and how they could have been made better, or how they affected you and your decision about this, because I can't believe that none of the good ideas presented were good enough to make it on paper. So I think we've got a lot of big questions on this, but really the biggest question, I think, is how do we make this state better for all of us, taking into account what that means for all of us?
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1106? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1106 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Williams, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Williams votes no. Representative Jackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Sandridge, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Sandridge votes no. Representative Neville, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Neville votes no. Please close the machine. With 40 aye votes, 25 no votes, and 0 excused, House Bill 1106 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. That concludes the third reading of bills calendar. The next order of business is general order second reading of bills. Representative Byrd. You have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, Representative Byrd will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee reports are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the Majority Leader, and the coat rule is relaxed. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1103 to the end of the second reading calendar.
House Bill 1103 has been laid over as moved by the Majority Leader. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1008.
House Bill 21-10008 by Representatives Arndt and Catlin, also Senators Cook and Hansen, concerning increased options for financing forest health projects in connection therewith, financing wildlife mitigation treatments.
Representative Arndt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 21-1008 and the Finance Committee report, except for I'd like to amend the Finance Committee report.
To the Finance Committee report.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Made this motion before, but I'm going to make it now.
To the Ag report.
Oh, okay. 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 And we also need to move the Ag Committee report.
Okay. To the Finance Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In Finance, we presented the incorrect amendment. Due to the wonders of COVID and all the other ins and outs, we had an identical amendment of 05 and 06. We moved 06, and they were identical. What we wanted to do was have 06 be the amendment, but it should have had the correct word with the, all the parties on board. And what this amendment does, that we're moving right now, is it clarifies that the fire mitigation projects that will be grant eligible are not for, in the future, are for just that, for fire mitigation, and not in the future for some sort of forestry work that is not directly related to fire mitigation. And I urge an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Finance Committee report? Representative Arndt.
Thank you, and I need to move amendment L007 and ask that it be properly displayed. There it is.
The amendment is now properly before us. Please proceed.
So it's just as I described. Pardon me, I described it before it was displayed.
Great. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the amendment L001 to the Finance Committee report. Those in favor say... 007. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The amendment passes. To the Ag report. Oh, fine. We're still back to the Finance Committee report.
Thank you, ma'am. Now that we've amended the Finance Committee report, what we just did was clarify the definition and make sure the grants that are eligible for fire mitigation do exactly that. And I urge an aye vote on the Finance Committee report.
Okay, the question before us is adoption of the Finance Committee report as amended. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The Finance Committee report as amended is adopted. To the Ag Committee report. Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you, Representative.
Thank you. In Ag Committee, we amended this bill 2 times. One for the counties to maintain their abilities, and the second to maintain the conservation districts, such as the Colorado River District, the Southwestern Conservation District, to maintain their capabilities and their organic structure. There was some concern about that, so what we did was to make sure that they were enumerated in the bill. And with that, I would ask for a yes vote on the Ag Committee report.
Thank you, Representative. The question before us is adoption of the Ag Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The Ag Committee report is adopted. To the bill. Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. People wonder about this piece of legislation. What this is for is to take the advantage of time before major storms and fires. I think all of you have suffered through some of these fires, even over here on this side of the mountain. The smoke was so thick you couldn't see the sun. I woke up in my country over there to where the sun looked like I was on a foreign planet, not just a foreign country, but it looked outer space. Those things are happening in our state. This piece of legislation will allow communities, counties, cities to take the offensive and go into their watersheds and do some mitigation prior to fire. We were told in this committee hearing that $1 of mitigation spent today will save up to $6 in firefighting. To me, that's a good investment. This allows communities in places like over in my country, in my area, our watershed happens to be a county past our county. This piece of legislation will allow Montrose County, for example, to go to Gunnison County to make arrangements and to finance mitigation prior to fire. That's something we haven't been able to do. When we talk about watersheds, a lot of us think in our mind, well, it's just out at the edge of town. Well, in reality, even your watersheds are counties away from you, the final consumer. This will allow special districts to be formed, people to vote whether or not they want to take care of that. If they do want to do it, they can then assess themselves to help pay for it. But the other thing that this bill does is it allows the state of Colorado to lend its bonding authority to those communities to move the money that needs to be moved to that watershed and to the WUI. WUI, which feels funny coming out of my mouth, but to the WUI, to mitigate some of these terrible fires that have been happening. It gives us an opportunity to get out in front of catastrophes. And you and I both know what catastrophes look like. In just the last couple of days, we've seen some of the fire damage that was done up above Loveland and up in that area, where possibly some actions taken prior to that could have saved an incredible amount of time and an incredible amount of money. Because after the fire, this money is not done. In fact, the expense starts then. In repairing watersheds, it's an incredible investment. It's going to take a lot of time. Down in the Durango country, they're still struggling with what at that time was the biggest fire in our history. We've now had 3 that outdid the 416 fire. So today, I would ask for a yes vote on this bill. It's a good bill. Vote yes.
Representative Arndt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to my co-prime sponsor, Representative Catlin. I feel the exact same way. No sooner did the west slope stop burning than the east slope started, the Front Range started burning. We had the Cameron Peak fire in my watershed, and right then and almost connected to it was the East Troublesome fire, the 2 biggest fires in Colorado history. One really great part of this bill, in addition to allowing the local entities to form a special district to levy assessments on themselves to take care of their own fire mitigation, is that it extends the ability of the Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority, which I came down a few weeks ago and talked to you about, the grant programs that form basically the backbone of water for the clean water and wastewater in the state of Colorado. We're giving that development authority the bonding authority to bond for fire mitigation. The idea is, let's pay for it right now. We wait till it burns down, then we give you a grant to build it back. Why don't we give you a grant to prevent it burning down? So I really appreciate the people who thought long and hard, and I just can't run this bill without giving a shout out to former Senator Ellen Roberts, who has been an integral part and a brainchild behind this bill. And to me, and I'll just say it again on the mic, she exemplifies the true community servant, and she's not serving an elected role, but she has not quit serving the state of Colorado, and I appreciate that. Please vote yes.
Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I gave you a promotion, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank my co-prime sponsor. She did an amazing amount of work with this, a lot of stakeholding, a lot of emailing. I've been on the recipient side of some of those, and I've had to clear my inbox a number of times. But I want you to know she's really good at this. She's done a great job. You should all be proud of her. Thank you.
Well, with that lovely close, is there any further discussion of House Bill 1008? Seeing none, the question before us is passage of House Bill 1008 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. House Bill 1008 as amended is adopted. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of Senate Bill 65.
Senate Bill 21-065 by Senator Liston, also Representative Mullica, concerning the disclosure of information related to the gasoline and special fuels tax.
Great. Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
It is an honor to serve with you.
Madam Chair, I move Senate Bill 65. There is no committee report.
Okay. The bill has been moved to the bill. Representative Mullica.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill was requested by the fuels distributors in Colorado who want to help make auditing more efficient and less costly and time-consuming. And the language was developed primarily by the department. The bill allows the department to provide the information that they use when comparing distribution reports related to common gallons through the fuel distribution chain to the entire entity under audit. Fuel distributors, for reasons related to excise tax and tracking tax-free fuels, are required to submit monthly reports to the Department of Revenue for gallons they sell when the gallons between the distributors don't match, and that raises red flags to the fuel tracking system, and the department investigates. The department being able to share that information that they are using to audit a distributor would be helpful to more quickly and efficiently resolve those auditing questions. The bill is limited only to the fuel tax auditing and only to the reports on common gallons that all the folks in the fuel distribution chain are required to report and reference specifically in the bill. I ask for a yes vote.
Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L001 and ask that it be displayed.
All right, Amendment L001 has been properly displayed. Please describe your amendment, Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this amendment, I'm pretty sure has the support of the sponsor and the Department of Revenue, and it clarifies the portion of the bill that amended our tax code that allows certain tax information to be shared with other taxpayers. And even though there was good testimony, and as the sponsor just described, that different monthly reports are filed in the distribution line of fuel, and whenever this is looked at by the Department of Revenue, either through an audit or some other type of inspection, they need to be able to see the other taxpayers in this fuel line distribution, their returns, and they may at some point have to share information on one return with the taxpayer on another. Unfortunately, the bill as it was presented did not describe this, even though it was described in testimony. So what this bill clarifies is what we're looking at in this section, the type of tax that Department of Revenue will be potentially sharing information about. So it's a somewhat technical amendment, but I ask for your support.
Representative Malika.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And every single day that I get to serve with Representative Benavides, I realize how much smarter she is than me, and she made a good catch on this bill, and I support the amendment and ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L001? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L001. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Amendment L001 is adopted. To the bill, Representative Malika.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask for a yes vote.
Thank you, Representative. Committee, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 065 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Senate Bill 65 as amended is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1047 until Monday, March 15th.
House Bill 1047 has been laid over as requested by the Majority Leader. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1137.
House Bill 1137 by Representatives Weissman and Van Winkle, also Senators Lee and Gardner, concerning the notification by legislative staff to members of the General Assembly regarding rules adopted as a result of legislation.
Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1137. There are no committee reports.
House Bill 1137 has been moved. Yes, Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this is a bill brought to you from the Committee on Legal Services. As you can see, I am jointly presenting it here with Rep. Van Winkle, and also on the front of the bill are all of the other members of the Committee on Legal Services. This is to try to strike a balance between notification to us as members of the General Assembly about rulemaking matters, and to also recognize the limited capacity of our nonpartisan staff downstairs, net of the many demands that we put on them in the course of a session. Going back to 2013, a bill was passed to direct notifications to sponsors, co-sponsors, and committee members concerning rules enacted pursuant to legislation. As the years have gone on, this workload has increased. There's really only one person downstairs who juggles this work along with a lot of other work. So what the bill does is preserves notifications to prime sponsors and committee members of relevant notifications, striking reference to co-sponsors, so it's not as much work to kind of compile lists of relevant names, which is done in a manual way, and also limiting the look-back period to 8 years, which we feel is a sufficient period of time to capture the most relevant rulemakings, but not just have things happening as time goes on and on and on and on, and a particular statute is still being cited in the basis and purpose statement of a rulemaking. So we think it's a good balance. We ask for your support.
Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, the Legal Services Committee did very good work on this bill. I thank them and my colleagues on the Legal Services Committee. Also, big thanks to the folks in the basement that make our jobs so much easier. This bill will make their jobs just a little bit more easy and frankly reduce a lot of those emails that many members of this body may not read or may end up in a folder that is marked for spam or other things. So just a simple cleanup bill that I think everyone can agree upon. I ask for a yes vote.
Great. Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1137? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1137. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. House Bill 1137.
No.
House Bill 1137 is adopted. The ayes have it. Mr. Gregorio, please read the title of House Bill 1018.
House Bill 1018 by Representatives Burnett and Van Bever, also Senator Jaquez Lewis, concerning allowing adoptive parents who are parties to adoption assistance agreements to pay for medical services that would otherwise be reimbursable under the agreement.
Representative Burnett.
Madam Chair, I move House Bill 1018 and the committee report.
House Bill 1018 and the committee report have been properly moved. To the committee report.
This bill is bipartisan, it has no fiscal note, and it got out of committee with a unanimous vote. It's regarding special needs children who are adopted out of foster care who automatically receive Medicaid assistance. These children have suffered significant trauma, physical, mental, sexual abuse, and neglect, and they need specialized care, often mental health services, that are not always available from a Medicaid provider, either because they need very specialized services or because there's a long distance from the family to the Medicaid provider. For years, parents could pay out of pocket for services provided by a non-Medicaid provider. But in 2019, House Bill 1174 was passed. It did protect Medicaid patients from surprise billings, but it had the unintended consequence of leveraging criminal penalties for non-Medicaid providers if they accept private pay for their services from a Medicaid or adoption assistance patients. This bill simply fixes those unintended consequences and allows parents to pay out of pocket for non-Medicaid services, and it also requires agreement between the parent and the non-Medicaid provider. This bill is simply putting children first and fixing an unintended consequence of House Bill 19-1174. It actually may save Medicaid money because of better outcomes that the children may receive because of these services and because parents are paying out of pocket for services.
Representative Van Bever.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There was an amendment in the committee, and so what that amendment does is it removes the word special because, frankly, the needs of a child do not have to be special in order to receive the kind of care that parents feel like a child should benefit from. It also clarifies the agreement as written, and it strengthens the language of this bill, making it clear that after the services are paid by the non-medical provider, that those services have been provided and paid for, and the parents cannot ask for reimbursement through adoption assistance or medical assistance programs.
Thank you, Representative Van Beber. Forgive me for mispronouncing your name the first time. So,
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
have an amendment to the committee report.
Oh, all right. Representative Burnett, let's take a look at that amendment.
I move L002 to the committee report.
All right, we're going to ask that that be properly displayed. And it is. Representative Burnett, please tell us about Amendment L002, which is now properly displayed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This amendment further clarifies that the county departments are not required to cover the services that the family elected to pay for as part of subsidy negotiations that consider the circumstances of the family or anticipated needs of the child. It also clarifies that nothing in this bill precludes consideration of any other family circumstances or anticipated needs of the child regarding negotiations for adoption assistance. I urge you to vote yes on Amendment L002.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L002 to the Health and Insurance Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L002 to the Health and Insurance Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Amendment L002 to the Health and Insurance report is adopted. To the bill, or to the committee report.
Madam Chair, I ask for a yes vote on the committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the Health and Insurance Committee report as amended? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Health and Insurance Committee report as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The Health and Insurance Committee report as amended is adopted. To the bill.
Madam Chair, I urge you to vote yes on House Bill 1018. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1018 as amended? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1018 as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. House Bill 1018 as amended has been adopted.
There we go. All right.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1103 be laid over until tomorrow, not Monday, tomorrow, Wednesday, March 10th.
House Bill 1103 has been laid over as requested by the Majority Leader. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
You have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come to order. Mr. Gregorio, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report it has under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 21-1008 as amended, House Bill 21-1018 as amended, House Bill 21-1137 passed on second reading in order engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 065 is amended, passed on second reading in order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1103 laid over to 31021 and retaining their place on the calendar. House Bill 1047 laid over until 31521 and retaining their place on the calendar.
We have 30 Committee of the Whole amendments. All right, and there. Thank you, Mark. You saved me a little bit. Representative Byrd. That is a proper motion. There are no amendments at the desk. The question before us is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Gregorio, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative McLaughlin, on the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Yes.
Representative McLaughlin votes yes. Representative Williams.
No.
Representative Williams votes no. Representative Jackson.
Yes.
Representative Jackson votes yes. Representative Sandridge.
No.
Representative Sandridge votes no. Representative Neville.
No.
Representative Neville votes no. Representative Arndt, Bradfield, and Van Beber. Representative Arndt and Van Beber are excused. I'm sorry, not Van Beber. I'm really sorry about that. Representative Bradfield and Arndt are excused. Oh, wait, here comes Representative Bradfield. Please close the machine. It is a $5 fine for Representative Arndt and a pass for Representative Bradfield. With 40 aye votes, 24 no votes, and 1 excuse, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Announcements and introductions. Representative Michelson-Jeannet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Public and Behavioral Health and Human Services Committee will meet at 1:30 today. We will be hearing 5 bills. Please be on time so that we can be efficient. We will have House Bill 1021, 1097, 1072, 1130, and 1123. Again, 1:30 sharp, room 112.
Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, just another reminder, judiciary will start at 10:40. We have 2 bills, Senate Bill 68, House Bill 1060. Please be in 107 at 10:40. Thank you.
Representative Wonteen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the Health and Insurance Committee. We will also be meeting at 10:40 in our usual spot, room 112. We have 1 bill on the agenda, Senate Bill 90. We've already made it to Senate bills. So see you there. Should be a quick morning.
Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the majority leaders and your permission, I will be missing March 16th and 17th.
That is approved. Representative D. Valdez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, today is Aerospace Day at the Capitol. Please join us at the caucus at noon. So please, we'll see you. Good question. So I can send out a link and email to notify you some more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Valdez. Majority Leader Escar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess until later today.
Seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess until later today.